Now, if there's one car in its entire lineup that Audi has a little bit of a chip on its shoulder about, it's probably the A4 Saloon. It's been instrumental in shaping the brand into the premium powerhouse it is today, but sadly it's never received the kind of critical acclaim that its makers feel it richly deserves. That could all be about to change though, because this is the all-new A4, and it might have what it takes to topple the evergreen BMW 3 Series. Now that's because it shares a brand new chassis architecture with the Q7 SUV. The MLB platform means this car is up to 110 kilograms lighter than its predecessor. It means it's faster than before, more fuel efficient, and it's also incredibly aerodynamic. Early launch events like this one are notorious for being very difficult to give a final verdict on the car you're driving. Time is limited, we don't have long on the routes we're driving on unfamiliar roads, and the cars are all spec'd very highly, so they're not very representative of what you might buy back in the UK. Luckily for me though, I've just spent the last few days driving hundreds of miles across Europe in all of the A4's major rivals, so I should have a pretty good idea of telling you whether or not this has what it takes to beat them. Now, in our group test video, we told you that the tribalism associated with cars like these means it's very impossible to try and convince you to choose one brand or piece of design over another. So we'll let you make up your own minds about what you think of the styling of the new A4. In here, though, it's very hard to dispute the fact that Audi has built another brilliant cabin. It might not have the visual drama of something like a Mercedes C-Class, but it's the tiny fit and finish, those little details that really make a difference. The clicks of these switches here, the lovely toggle switches on this new touch-sensitive climate control system, and here the beautiful finish just on the headlining. It's those kind of things that are going to make this car really nice to live with. It's got the same virtual cockpit as an option that you can get on the TT and on the Q7, and there's a few other nice details in here, but basically what you need to know is it's really logical, it's really well laid out, and the driving position is fantastic too, which means it'll be a really, really good motorway cruiser. Now, at first glance, the A4 does seem like really good value. Whether you pick a petrol or a diesel, most models undercut their nearest rivals by a few £100s. Get into the nitty-gritty of the spec though, and things aren't quite so clear-cut. For example, all SE models come without sat-nav, which is standard on most of its rivals. It's the same story when you come to sport models. Leather is only available as an option and not fitted as standard like it is again on a lot of the competition. Although the sport model does come with 17-inch alloy wheels, three-way climate control and reversing sensors, when the equivalent Mercedes C-Class sport model also comes with a reversing camera, a larger screen, more safety equipment, as well as full LED headlights and leather seats, the A4 does start to look a little bit stingy. So far, I've been able to tell you that the new Audi A4 looks quite similar to the previous generation and has a lovely interior. So far, so Audi then, but things actually have definitely moved on for this model. It's a bigger car than it was before. In fact, it's one of the longest cars in its class now. It feels more spacious in here than a lot of this car's rivals, particularly the Jaguar XE. But because it's also so much lighter than it was before, it also feels lighter on its feet too. The ride is much better, it's seriously improved. The car we're driving here has adaptive suspension, but it really does do its job very well. Controlling all those body movements and making sure that it always glides over the road rather than stumbling across bumps and potholes like the old car used to. It's very impressive indeed, actually, the way this car deals with that sort of thing. Similarly, the engines are a big improvement, both in terms of power but also efficiency. So for the 187 brake horsepower diesel, which is the one that most people will buy, CO2 emissions are from as low as 101 grams per kilometre, while your official economy is well above 70 mpg, which is seriously impressive. It does 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 7.7 seconds, which is a fair bit quicker than some of this car's rivals. The most efficient version of the new A4 is a 2-litre TDI Ultra model with 148 brake horsepower and a manual gearbox. It wasn't actually on the launch for us here to try, but it's the equivalent model to the BMW 320d Efficient Dynamics. It's a little bit down on power and torque compared to the Beamer, and slower from 0 to 62 miles an hour by nearly a second. But it does match its official economy figure of 74.3 miles per gallon, as well as that magic CO2 figure of 99 grams per kilometre, despite being on larger 17-inch alloys than the BMW. On a mixed route in the 187 brake horsepower version of the 2-litre TDI Ultra with a manual gearbox, we managed around 55 mpg, which is not too bad, but if experience in the A6 is anything to go by, it should return a fair bit more than that on an average daily commute. You'd have to say that the 3 Series and the Jaguar XE do still have the edge when it comes to driving enjoyment. The front-wheel drive diesel that we drove this morning certainly had a reasonable amount of grip, but there was a lot of squeal from the tyres, a little bit of understeer when you really get going and start pushing it into corners. As I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and most drivers probably aren't going to tell the difference, but in the rear-wheel drive competition you get that bit more engagement. It's that weight balance that really makes the difference. On the motorway though, the new A4 I think will be supreme, and that's because the refinement is superb. It's something you notice very early on in this car is that you barely have to raise your voice, even on the motorway at high speed, even around town as well. The gearbox and the engine work together really, really smoothly, and it just feels that little bit more premium, that little bit more luxurious, like a bigger car, like the A8. And that's a really, really nice feeling, and it goes well with this grown-up interior. At the end of our epic European road test, we decided that the perfect compact executive saloon would have the engine and gearbox from the 3 Series, the ride and handling of the Jaguar XE, and the luxurious interior of the C-Class. Now, the new A4 comes mighty close to ticking all 3 of those boxes. The interior certainly feels just as premium as the Mercedes, and it's also that little bit more logically laid out. Its refinement and ride quality is really, really impressive too, and as a rational choice, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's not quite going to give you the same thrills as the 2 rear-wheel drive competitors. Having said that though, as an all-rounder, it's going to run the 3 Series extremely close indeed.